So we'll keep this webinar up on our Foundations Fund website after we're done so that you can access it later. If you are a new grantee or a potential new grantee, make sure you try and tune into everything. If you are a returning grantee, I'll indicate things that you should probably be aware of. I realize it's hard to keep everybody's captive attention the whole time, so a lot of this will be familiar to you, but there are some things that you should know about as we're running through it. Also, in response to questions, I would highly encourage everybody to read the FAQ document that we released along with the application. It answers a lot of the questions that people may have. We updated it this year. We update it every time we have a new round of funding. So just reference that document. But there's a good chance there'll be some questions that you still have. I'm going to go ahead and share our presentation. I think I should still be able to see the chat after this. All right. Can everybody see the presentation? Just give me a thumbs up. Jim, David. All right, great. Already did the welcome, so we'll move on to the next slide. Real quick about TSHAC, we were established in 1994 by the legislature. We're a 501c3 nonprofit. We're tasked with serving the housing needs of low income and underserved families and communities throughout Texas. We operate statewide. As all of you know, our three main operating areas are helping developers build housing, helping Texans buy a house, and then helping people stay in a house. And that's where our Texas Foundations Fund program resides, is the activities that surround us, keeping people stably housed. About the Texas Foundations Fund, as most of you all know, this is our single largest grant making program. We have given out upwards of $4 million since its inception in 2008, I believe was the first year. We make some changes to it every time we do a funding cycle. Last time we introduced changes was 2 years ago, and we had been operating under a 2-year cycle since 2016. This year, it's just an annual one. So, we'll revisit the program at the end of the year. We'll ask for feedback and make changes accordingly. We have simplified things this year. If you are a returning grantee, I will highlight some of the ways that we are trying to make this easier and more accommodating to organizations. The first is that we did away with the matching grant component of it. So you will no longer have to document that there is an organization that has already contributed to your program and you want us to match that amount. All of that has gone away. It should make things a lot simpler on your end. It'll make things easier to administer on our end, which was really a big contributing factor. We had more grantees than we've ever had 2 years ago, which is a great thing, but it makes it really hard. It's a lot of paperwork and time on our end. So we just tried to simplify everything across the board. Also, big change this year is that we expanded what can be included in supportive services. Now, if you are doing homebuyer education, eviction counseling, foreclosure prevention counseling, credit counseling, financial education, homebuyer education, any of that, it is now an eligible activity as a component of our supportive services program area. Also, we realized that we did not get the number of smaller organizations that we had hoped in the past, and a lot of that had to do with our requirements surrounding audits or financial reviews. So we have bifurcated organizations now into budget sizes of more than 2 million or less than 2 million. If your organizational budget exceeds $2 million, you will be still required to do the 2 years of audits, like you've always done. And if your budget is less than $2 million, we're no longer requiring audit. We ask that you either provide 2 years of financial reviews or a letter of support from a funder who has funded the program that you are seeking funding for from us. I'm going to pause real quick just because I need to see who might need to be admitted into the meeting, and I can't see that right now. Bear with me 1 second. And now I can't see anything at all. Okay. My apologies to those of you that were in the waiting room. I could not see who was in the waiting room while I was doing our presentation. So like I mentioned at the outset, we are recording this. So whatever you missed will be captured in that. All right, now I'm gonna go back to where we were. All right. The other change that we made is that we expanded the definition of underserved population. Historically, the populations that we were asking you to serve were individuals with, or somebody in the household had to have a documented disability, or they had to be in a rural area. Now we are expanding that in a sense, in that you have to demonstrate that the population that you're serving is underserved in your community. So it's up to you to identify the population or populations that you want to serve. And then in the narrative sections of the application that Anna will get to at the end of this webinar, you just have to document however you want, how and why those populations are underserved in your community. And then lastly, this isn't a change, but I did want to highlight it. You will not be applying for a certain amount of funding. The funding that you receive is contingent upon the number of total applicants that we get. We evenly divide the grants across every organization. And so we don't know how much you're going to get until we know the number of accepted applicants that we have. So this is, I realize it's not a traditional grant making program where you request X amount of dollars and then the organization awards you that or awards some level of it. This is different in that we really won't know definitively how much you're going to get until we know the number of organizations that were accepted. I realize that that is kind of tricky for your budgeting purposes too, because it's a nebulous number that you can't fill in, but we feel like this is the most equitable way to distribute the grants. So these are our partner requirements. And if you are a new grantee or a returning grantee, it bears repeating that this is not a competitive grant making program. As long as you meet these requirements, you will be accepted as a grantee. And the requirements real quick, you have to be a 501c3 nonprofit. You have to have 3 years of experience operating housing programs within the state. You have to have 2 years of experience operating the program you want us to fund. There are some certifications at the end of the application. You have to certify that they're all true. The most important one being that you haven't defaulted or been required to repay any federal funding for the past 2 years. And then this one I just went over, but it bears repeating again because it is an important consideration for us and for a lot of organizations. If you are over $2 million, still requiring audits. If you're less than $2 million, we'll accept financial reviews or a letter of support from someone who's funded your program. You have to serve 50% or below AMFI. I know that this is a tricky one for a lot of Habitat affiliates who have a higher median family income level that they serve for their critical repair programs, but we do ask that even for Habitat affiliates, you earmark our dollars for the 50% MFI households. And then lastly, like I mentioned, use the grant to serve underserved populations, however those are identified and defined by your organization. eligible programs on the home repair side, none of it's changed. They have to be owner-occupied homes, with the exception of if your organization owns the housing and provides it as rental housing to somebody in the community, then that's fine. And then supportive services, this is where we made the big expansion, like I mentioned earlier. All of the typical supportive services that are provided at supportive housing communities are covered, just like they have been in the past. The case management, physical and mental health services, substance use disorder services. We did expand this to also include food insecurity services, and then any sort of job training or employment related services. And then, like I mentioned, if your organization is in that housing and financial counseling space, then those are eligible activities as well. Any sort of credit, financial counseling, foreclosure, eviction prevention counseling, anything, any sort of counseling services that are provided are now covered. Real quick, none of this has changed. So if you're a returning grantee, this will be familiar to you. You can use our funding pretty liberally for things, even including like staff salaries. And then the administrative costs component, which Anna will address more specifically in the application. Across the board, you're allowed to use 5% of the grant for administrative costs. If you want to go up to 10%, then you have to explain how those admin dollars are going to be used in the application. But if you're just using the 5%, you don't have to answer that narrative question, and Anna will explain that. And then real quick, our timeline, this should say 2022 at the top, by the way, my apologies. Our timeline got a little bit quicker this year, and that's primarily due to the fact that we have to get the grant dollars out the door before September 1st. So we moved everything up a little bit. Our application opened earlier than it ever has. Our deadline is earlier. It's May 20th. We'll review them in June, and you should be notified in late July or early August if you're accepted as a grantee. And then we'll start making the funds available in August. In terms of when you need to spend the money and report on the money, all that's has remained the same. You have until March of next year to take down your funding, but you have to spend it by the end of September of next year. And you also have to report that by October 1st. All right, I'm gonna hand over the meeting controls to Anna, and she'll walk you through the application process.
All right, thanks, Michael. Let's see. Let me share my screen really quick.
I have a question before we move forward, Anna. Can I ask it? Or do I?
Hello?
Yes, go ahead.
Yes, for the, because I'm new to this, I'm just in the webinar, just getting the information. And I noticed the eligible, I guess, programs that can apply for the grant, or you said the 501c3, 3C.
That's right.
Can it be a municipality or only nonprofits?
We used to allow local governments to apply, but nobody did for probably a decade. And so we narrowed our eligibility to 501c3s. So municipalities no longer have the ability to apply.
Okay. Oh man, that's unfortunate. I only say that because for us, we do assist with like the homes for the rehab. However, because we're only limited on what we can technically assist with because of supplies and everything going up, it would kind of benefit if we could kind of get some other stuff to be able to assist with, repairs to the home. But yeah.
Can you email me offline and we can talk through that?
Okay, I can. Thank you.
Cool. Thanks.
All right. Unless anyone has any other questions, I'll go ahead and get started. So if you want to apply, a good place to start is by going to our website, that's tsahc.org, coming over here to nonprofits and governments, and then selecting the Texas Foundations Fund option in our dropdown. That'll bring you to this page where you can scroll down and find a link to our guidelines for this year, as well as our wonderful FAQ document, which might answer some of your questions as well. But most importantly, you'll be able to find a link to the registration site. Now, if you want to get registered to apply and you're a new applicant, go ahead and click register in the top right-hand corner. Then you can enter your first name, your last name, an email, and create a password. And you'll be able to set up an account that way. But if you are, plug many new people into the webinar. If you're a returning applicant, you can click login, or you can just hit apply. For the purpose of this webinar, I'm going to just hit login because I've already created my application. All right, so I'm logged in as a returning applicant. So you can see my 2 applications here. This is last year's. So if you're returning and you're a returning grantee, you might see something similar when you log in. If you're a new applicant, you will just see a new application. So getting started, you should see something like this, an eligibility quiz. And once you click on it, you can start filling it out. And it'll ask you questions like this one: is your organization a nonprofit? If I say no, it'll let you know whether or not you're eligible. But let's go ahead and go through each of these questions, and let's pretend I'm applying for supportive services funding. And I'm just flying through the quiz, going and saying that I can document that my targeted population is underserved, and that I'm going to serve a population at or below 50% AMFI, only using my funds for households in Texas, and that I am going to spend all of my grant funds within a year, and that I can provide all the financial information for whatever budget size my organization might be, and that I have plenty of experience operating my organization's programs, and then the program in question that I want to be funded. This question will be asking if you have any history of defaulting or needing to repay any sort of grants or funding within the past 2 years. I'm going to go ahead and say no. And let's see, this one is for our returning grantees. We're just checking in to see, have you submitted all your requirements from the 2020 round, making sure you're up to date on that before you get started on anything else. And once you've passed that part of the quiz, you can go ahead and put in the information about your organization, your name, and your email. Now, you can click save and continue editing if you just want to save your progress. But if you are done with this and you're ready to move on to the next step, go ahead and hit mark as complete right here. That will then show you the rest of the application tasks. And you go over to the left and you click on whichever task you want to complete. And this application form is again asking you for your organization's name, address, a good main phone line for you all. And then we also are asking, what's the main point of contact's name, their title, email, phone, and we move on to what counties do you want to serve using your grant. You can select however many you're able to serve. I chose Travis County because that's where we're located. And also Williamson because we're in Central Texas. I'm going to say that I'm a previous awardee, and again, just picking out my program type. Choose whichever is applicable to you. For funding priorities, this question is mainly to give you an opportunity to state, one, what is the targeted population that you want to serve with this grant. This is where you would explain and demonstrate why that target population would be considered an underserved population. Now, you can also click here in order to view our FAQ document, which will kind of explain more about how we want you to go about defining an underserved population. Moving on to the next question. We just want to know all about your organization. Tell us about your mission, tell us about its history, the different programs that you all do, besides the one that you want us to fund, and just what you're about and what you're trying to accomplish. The next question is where you'll tell us about the program that you want us to fund. How long have you operated it? How many households are you serving with it? And how are you documenting that these households are meeting certain requirements like income and requirements that would show that they are an underserved population? The next question is all about more statistics and research and showing that your program is needed in the community, and it's basically saying, hey, there's this need and we're filling it. It's giving you a chance to highlight what you're doing. Question 4 is about how you document the success and impact of the program that we're going to fund. Just what kind of metrics are you using? What kind of feedback and demographic information are you collecting from the households? Everything like that. Now, question 5 is going to be an upload for your budget. And there's all these information and instructions here. But if you don't already have a budget set up, you can go ahead and click right here, and it'll take you to a sample budget for supportive services. We also have a sample budget for critical repair programs, but you can just go ahead and upload that up here. And if you are wondering what the accepted formats are for that, you can just look to the side and they're right there as well. Question 6 is about that administrative funding requirement that Michael was talking about earlier. The default is that you can use up to 5% for administrative or technical assistance costs. If you only plan on using up to 5%, you don't have to fill out this section, just fill in NA. But if you do want to request up to 10% for administrative funding, just you need to explain to us why, what are you going to do with it, and just let us know what you're using it for, and we'll take a look. Question 7 is another opportunity for you to explain if you have any sort of complaints or disputes going on with other organizations or different parties. Let us know what's going on. It's a chance to explain yourself there. And now we're getting into more of the nitty-gritty. We're asking you to just upload your determination letter from the IRS that says, yes, we are a 501c3 nonprofit. And the certifications down here, you can think of those as like a terms and conditions for this application. It's just statements and requirements that we want you to be aware of. And so you just go through and check which ones, check everything basically. And right here are more information and, different resources for housing laws. Now, this this question isn't, your answer isn't going to qualify you, disqualify you from receiving funding, but we're basically just wanting to know, how are you communicating the program that we're going to fund in the community? What are you doing to put yourself out there and achieve your goals? So put that there. And last on the application form, we're wanting to know how we can send you your money if you are accepted. Our preference is ACH payment just because it's usually quick and easy for our grantees, and you don't have to worry about getting a mail check and depositing it. So if you do want to do an ACH form, an ACH payment, excuse me, you click on the ACH request form, fill it out, and re-upload it here with a copy of a voided check. Again, we can also send you a mailed check if you'd rather do that. But once you're done filling out this application form, you should do mark as complete. That'll ensure that you can submit everything in the application at the end of the application period. But if you just need to save your progress, click here. Actually, before I scroll back up, let me save my progress and show you that right here, you'll see a check mark for tasks that are completed and that are good to go. And here's a little half circle showing you that you still need to go and mark it as complete. And it's only partially complete in the eyes of the system. So at the end of everything, when you think you're done, go through and double check that and make sure that you can submit it. Because we've had grantees do that before where they complete everything, but forget to hit submit. And so don't do that. But going on to the upload tasks, this is just a place for you to upload your list of important staff members, executive staff members, board of directors. And if you're wondering what kind of file you can upload, you can click this right below the attach file button, and it'll tell you what different file extensions you can add in. And then again, you can mark it as complete once you're done. Next, we're asking for your most recent financial statements. We want these dated no later than March 31st, 2022. We want your income statements and balance sheets, and yeah, you upload it here. The next is the operating budget for your organization. We're asking for the 2022 copy, and yeah, we accept PDF and Word docs for that. Okay, this the financial requirements is going to differ again based on your organization's budget size. If you are in an organization that earns above $2 million, you're going to go ahead and do the same old thing that you've done in the past and give us your budgets and auditor letters and everything that's listed there. But if your organization has a budget of less than $2 million, you're going to want to go ahead and submit this instead. Yes. And make sure to scroll down when you come to see this application list, the task list. Depending on your window size, it can hide things. So sorry guys, I see that you are submitting some questions. Let me go ahead and finish up going through these tasks, and I'll scroll through and answer y'all. Okay, here we're asking you to upload a 2021 IRS 990 form. If you don't have the 2021 version, go ahead and submit your 2020. But I believe we'll be asking you to send us your 2021 version as soon as you get it. All right, for funding sources, we're just asking that you give us a list of government, corporate, individual donations or different contributors that have given to your organization within the past 3 years. We would like you to list out the years that those donations were made, the amounts that were made, and which program they went towards. For program funding sources, we're asking that you give us a good estimate of what anticipated funding sources that you're looking forward to in 2022 for the purposes of this program that you would like us to fund. Again, include dates, amounts requested, and the funding source that it's going towards, or if it's still pending. The last two application tasks are optional, but they're a good opportunity for you to tell us a little more about your organization and what y'all are doing. Again, some of you are going to be returning grantees or returning applicants, and so we may know what y'all are doing, but it's a good opportunity to update us on what you all are doing. So for program materials, we're just asking that you go ahead and give us flyers or communications, newsletters, any sort of marketing materials that are showing what your organization's doing, what y'all have been up to for the past 2 years, and the different things that you're accomplishing. The other thing that you can upload are program highlights. And this is more leaning towards reports, statistics, and news articles that involve your organization and the program that we're going to fund. Again, just a good opportunity to let us know what y'all are doing behind the scenes. So once you've marked everything as complete and everything in this task list has a big green check mark next to it, you're going to scroll down and you're going to see this little menu. Now, before you submit, you can review your application. But one thing that I really want to, again, stress is that you hit submit once you're done. That will let me know that your application is in, that it's good to go, and that everything is complete. Now, that being said, if you do forget and you have everything pretty much done over here in your application task and on your application form, then you can rest assured that we'll be in the system and we'll notice that certain applicants are almost done, but not quite done. They haven't hit submit. And we'll let you know around that May 18th, May 19th, close to the deadline. We'll check in and say, hey, are you going to finish? Because you're really close and we don't want you to miss out. But with all that being said, I think that's pretty much the gist of the application. I know y'all had questions, so let me go ahead and see.
I'll answer the questions real quick. Thank you so much for going over that. Real quick, Janet, the deadline is 5 p.m. Central on Friday, May 20th, and not noon. I wanted to highlight what Katie Fine was asking about, because this is important. Your program can serve whatever income level you want. I know this is common with home repair programs that you serve 80%, 100%, even up to 120%. That's fine. But the dollars, the funds that we send you have to be designated for the 50% or below AMFI households. So within your program, it can serve whoever you want, but you just have to earmark our funds for that 50% and below. And then what Kate was asking about, and this is an important thing to note, because we realize that your audits don't come in until sometimes as late as September or October of the following year. What I would recommend is that you upload your most recent audit, whatever that is, for whatever that year is, 2020 or 2021. And then if you don't have an audit that we're asking for, just upload a a piece of paper that says like audit forthcoming and we anticipate it'll be here on X date. I like to keep everything housed in the system as much as possible. So it's better if you can just tell us within the system, however you want, that you're waiting on an audit, as opposed to sending it as an attachment to us directly, separately. That way, when we're reviewing things, we can just take note of that you don't have an audit, you're waiting on it, you expect it to be in August, whenever, and that you'll send it over when it's ready. If you don't have one of the audits that we're asking for, it is not going to delay your funding. Assuming that you're eligible with your whatever audit that you upload and with everything else, you passed all the eligibility, you're going to get your funding. We're not going to hold up your funds until September while you're waiting on an audit. The other thing I would mention, the required auditor's communications letter, a lot of people forget to attach that. It is something that we require. We also understand that oftentimes you get your audit with that required communication letter at the very beginning and it's all one document. If that's the case for your organization, just upload that same document twice. Where when we're asking for the audit, go ahead and include that communication letter and audit all together right then, right there. And then whenever we're asking for the required communication letter, just upload that same document once again. We don't want you to have to spend time going into an Adobe editor and splicing out the communication letter from the audit when it's just when you can just upload that exact same document twice. And then I did want to mention that our strong preference for handing out grant funds is through ACH. So please try and make that the default for everybody. If you can do ACH, it's a whole lot easier on our end and you'll get your money a lot quicker. All right, looking at the other questions real quick. Amy will add you to the email notification list. Happy to do that. Our income guidelines, we link to the HUD site. Whether I'm not familiar with the difference between Section 8, home, or anything else, there's a link to the HUD income limits within our FAQ document, and that's what we rely on, are the HUD limits. We're not going to sit there and double check everybody's income level to make sure that they match up with HUD incomes limits. We're not going to get into the granular details of the households that you're serving. We trust that organizations know income limits within their community or know the income limits that your programs operate under, and we're going to defer to you in your judgment when it comes to that. And Rita, happy to answer that maybe in a separate email. We can send you the PDF handouts from this presentation and also a link to the recording for your executive director. The eligibility quiz has to be done prior to get access to the application. It's not necessarily a part of the application, it's a pre-application. And so you just have to run through that eligibility quiz to make sure that you're eligible to apply. So yes, it's done separately before doing the application. I think that's everything I wanted to touch on. I did want to emphasize what Anna mentioned about people who make a lot of progress in the application and don't finish it. We'll be able to track people's progress. If it's coming up, if it's like May 18th or May 19th and you're substantially complete, but haven't hit submit, we're going to check in with you to see if you intend to finish. Judy, well, it depends on the organization that you're applying on behalf of, because we funded organizations like CIPSL in the past through Foundations Fund. Ari, yeah, we funded through HART. We worked with you before. You would still be considered a new organization for this program, but it really doesn't matter if you're new or returning because everybody's treated the same. That's everything we had on our end. If people have questions and want to stay on for a little bit, happy to address those. I'm going to go ahead and end the recording. after I answer this last question from Maria. We're liberal on what we consider supportive housing. I would reference the definition that we have in supportive housing for how we determine supportive housing. We took out the word permanent because it gave a lot of people the impression that the applicant of record had to own and operate that housing, that it had to be like a freestanding permanent supportive housing building that you were managing and providing the services to. And that's not our intent of this program, because we're flexible when it comes to that. We are allowing grant funding to service providers that don't operate the housing. So we wanted to kind of steer clear of the PSH designation and open it more broadly to people in that supportive housing space in general, even if you weren't owning and operating the housing, like scattered site or lease-based or master lease-based. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and end the recording. If you have questions, feel free to stay on. And I believe that's everything. Thank you so much for everybody that was on. This is far and away our most well-attended TFF webinar ever. I think that that's a reflection of how popular the grant program will be in this upcoming year. And so we're excited to be working with all the returning grantees and for the new ones coming on board. Hope everybody enjoys the rest of their week.